Welcome, dear listeners. Tonight, let your thoughts drift gently as we take you on a peaceful journey. This is a space for calm, for quiet moments, and for the kind of stories that settle your heart and slow your breath. Make yourself comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and allow the world to soften around you. Now, let's begin with tonight's story. Today's story is titled, The Eternal Weave, the Chronicles of the Weaver's Covenant. The lanterns flickered like whispers, and the wind carried secrets only the old stones could understand. It was on a night just like this, sharpened by autumn chill and muffled by a crescent moon, that a traveler came to the edge of the forgotten village of Dara Hollow. Few maps marked the place anymore. Tucked between tangled forests and crumbling moorland, Dara Hollow was the kind of settlement that even ghosts spoke of with reverence. Some said it vanished during a harvest long ago, swallowed by time itself. Others claimed it still existed, hidden in a fold of the world, appearing only when the veil between realms grew thin. Tonight was such a night. The traveler was a young historian named Lysander Quill, known more for his obsession with lost legends than for practical sense. With spectacles fogging and journal clutched to his chest, he made his way down the muddy trail leading to the village, if it truly existed. He had come seeking truth. Or, at the very least, a good story. All around him, the forest whispered. The trees were tall and bare, their skeletal arms scratching at the heavens. Every so often, the wind would shift and carry with it the faintest sound, like laughter but hollow, as though echoing from a long dried well. Lysander pressed on. At the base of a hill, nestled beside a field long overrun with thistle and briar, he found it, a stone marker etched with a sigil of fire and flame, ancient Gaelic, perhaps, or older still. The same sigil had appeared in his research time and again. It was said to be the mark of a soul caught between worlds. Below the symbol were the words, "When the flame guides the forgotten, beware what walks behind." He read it aloud, and the wind answered. It was then that the fog rolled in. Thick and silver, it spilled from the trees and the earth itself. Lysander stumbled back, heart quickening. He watched in disbelief as shadows began to shape themselves, walls rising, rooftops forming. A village. A ghost of one, at least. Dara Hollow had returned. But this was no ordinary place. The buildings were crooked and cobbled, their wood warped as if burnt from within. Lanterns hung from posts, glowing not with fire but with a soft, greenish pulse. The air was dense with the scent of damp moss, candle wax, and something else, sulfur, perhaps. Lysander Quill, a voice croaked from behind. He spun, nearly dropping his journal. An old woman stood there, robed in tattered layers, her eyes the color of storm clouds. In her hands was a lantern, glass cracked, but still alight. "You've come for the story," she said. "They always do." Lysander nodded. The tale of the hollow flame. The man with the cursed lantern. The woman cackled, teeth yellowed like fallen leaves. Man. Oh no, boy. It was no man, Not anymore. She beckoned him into a small, leaning house where a fire crackled, though no wood fed it. Lysander sat as she poured something thick and dark into a chipped mug. "It begins not with a man," she said, "but with a boy. A boy named Gentlerain Flint. Clever with words, and twice as slippery with promises. He lived here once, long before the hollow faded." Lysander's pen scratched furiously. Gentlerain was a thief of small things, apples from carts, ribbons from pockets, the hearts of many. But his greatest crime was not theft. She leaned closer. It was arrogance. The firelight flickered unnaturally, throwing long shadows against the walls. One All Hallows Eve, when the moon was cruel and the veil thin, Gentlerain tricked something ancient. A thing that walks without feet, that speaks without tongue. We don't say its name, but he called it with blood and silver, thinking he could bargain. What did he want? Lysander asked, eyes wide. Eternal cleverness. A silver tongue sharp enough to never be deceived. And did he get it? The old woman smiled bitterly. In a way. The spirit gave him a coin that could never be spent, and a lantern that would always burn. But there's a price, Lysander whispered. She nodded. He could speak his way out of any danger, except death. And when death came, it found itself tricked. The hollow flame could not be extinguished, and Gentlerain's soul, clever and rootless, had nowhere to go. She paused, staring into the fire. He walked still. Between places. The green flame his only guide. Lysander felt a coldness settle around his heart. He walks, here. The woman didn't answer. She simply pushed the lantern toward him. Take it. The story isn't finished. Not until someone walks farther than he did. The fire died. The house vanished. Lysander was alone again, standing outside with the lantern in hand. The village was gone, swallowed once more by fog. But the flame remained soft, green, and pulsing. And in its glow, he saw the faintest trail stretching into the dark woods beyond. He followed. The green flame flickered softly, casting an otherworldly glow across the damp path. Leaves rustled in the wake of Lysander's footsteps, their edges browned and curling like the edges of burnt paper. The deeper he ventured into the woods, the more reality thinned. Trees seemed to bend inward, listening. Even time itself slowed, as if reluctant to continue. The lantern grew warmer in his hand. It was not heat he felt, but pressure subtle, like something alive beneath glass. He paused. Just beyond the next ridge, a clearing opened like a wound in the forest. At its center stood a stone circle, weathered and ancient, with moss clinging to its surface like old memories. In the center of the ring stood a tree, leafless and twisted, its bark blackened as if once struck by lightning. From its branches hung dozens of small lanterns, each one dead, their glass cracked or missing entirely. Except one. The green lantern in Lysander's hand pulsed suddenly brighter, as if excited. Drawn by instinct, he stepped into the circle. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through his ribs. The moment his foot crossed the ring of stones, the lanterns in the tree groaned, and one by one, they began to ignite. But not with fire. Each lantern glowed with a memory. Flashes of faces. Echoes of voices. A boy laughing beside a brook. A girl clutching a silver coin. An old man carving a turnip with trembling hands. All of them gone, yet captured in flickering flame. Lysander's breath caught. His hands trembled. "What is this place?" he whispered. The flame in his lantern flared. A whisper answered not with words, but with emotion, longing, regret, and something deeper. Hunger. He turned toward the tree, and saw that something now sat beneath it. It was a figure, hunched and robed in shadow, face obscured beneath a wide-brimmed hat stitched from midnight cloth. In its hand, it too held a lantern green, just like Lysander's, but older, the glass blackened by time and sorrow. "You followed the flame," the figure said, its voice brittle and bone-dry. "Now you must hear the truth of it." Lysander took a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" "I am called many things," the figure said. "Some name me the Hollow Watcher. Others whisper of the Lantern Keeper. But once, long ago, I was Gentlerain Flint." Lysander froze. "You're him. The boy who tricked death." "No," said Gentlerain, rising slowly. "I am what became of him." As he stood, the shadows peeled away slightly, revealing a face half burned, half frozen in youth. His eyes were hollow flames. His smile was too wide. "The coin was never meant to spend," Gentlerain said, voice growing colder. "The flame was never meant to guide. They are keys. Cursed ones." Lysander's fingers tightened around the lantern's handle. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "No one does," Gentlerain replied. "But you accepted the flame. And that was consent enough." The green glow swelled. Around them, the lanterns in the tree flickered faster. Faces began to emerge in their glass souls once lost, trapped in the memory of their last moment. All of them had followed the flame. All of them had heard the whispers. "I want to understand," Lysander said. "Why the stories never end the same. Why they keep coming back." Gentlerain stepped closer, and the air turned cold. "Because the story isn't done," he said. "Each time it is told, it changes. A detail forgotten. A name misremembered. And the hollow grows hungrier. He lifted his own lantern. "There is a path beyond here," he said. "It leads into the hollow itself, the place between stories. Between truths." Lysander swallowed hard. "Why me?" "Because you listened," said Gentlerain. "Because you were curious enough to come when others turned away. And because you still believe a story can be rewritten." The wind howled through the stones. One of the lanterns on the tree shattered without warning. A scream echoed from within the shards. Lysander looked down at his lantern. The green flame now held a shape, a silhouette of a boy running through the woods, chased by something vast and shadowed. "Are they real?" he asked. "The things in the flame?" Gentlerain didn't answer. He only turned toward the darkness beyond the circle and began to walk. Lysander hesitated, but only for a breath. Then he followed. The moment Lysander crossed the circle's edge, the world shifted. Not with a jolt, but with a soft uncoiling, like a breath being exhaled in reverse. The trees behind him folded into mist, and the stones of the circle fell away, dissolving like chalk in water. What lay ahead was no longer forest, nor field, nor night. It was something older. The ground beneath his feet turned gray, then ash-colored. Not quite earth, but not smoke either. It crunched underfoot, though he could not see what he stepped on. The air buzzed faintly with whispers, not voices, but fragments of them, like broken records playing all at once. Some cried out in sorrow. Others laughed. One repeated the same word, "Why, why, why?" Gentlerain walked ahead, the hem of his dark coat sweeping over the pale path like the shadow of a pendulum. His lantern no longer flickered, it burned steady, harsh, and constant. Lysander caught up beside him. "This is the hollow?" he asked quietly. Gentlerain didn't answer immediately. His eyes were locked forward, unmoving. "This is the place where stories bleed," he finally said. "Where endings fall when no one remembers them. Every broken tale, every lost legend, every song interrupted before the last verse, they come here. And wait." Lysander shivered. "Wait for what?" "For someone to carry them back." As they walked, the fog began to part like curtains, revealing twisted shapes to either side, statues, or people frozen in time. Some clutched books. Others held weapons, musical instruments, even hands raised as if mid-gesture. One had no eyes, just empty sockets leaking ink. Lysander turned away. "How long have you been here?" he asked. Gentlerain's laugh was bitter. "I stopped counting after the 3rd century. I stopped remembering after the 5th. Lysander hesitated. "You're not human anymore, are you?" "No," Gentlerain said. "But I'm not hollow yet either." They reached a fork in the path. One trail twisted upward, lit by faint silver lanterns swinging from trees shaped like weeping women. The other descended, swallowed by a tunnel of black vines and thorns that pulsed like veins. Jiren paused. "We take the dark road." "Of course we do," Lysander muttered. As they moved into the tunnel, the light from Lysander's lantern dimmed, forcing him closer to Jiren. The vines overhead murmured as they passed, the thorns twitching as if tasting the air. "This place feeds on memory," Jiren said. "Don't think of your past too hard. Or your name." "What happens if I do?" "It takes it from you. And once it's gone, you won't even know you've lost it." Lysander clutched the lantern tighter. They emerged into a clearing shaped like a spiral. Floating above its center was a well not made of stone, but of interlocked bones, polished white and humming with energy. Dozens of lanterns circled it like stars trapped in orbit. "This is where it happened," Jiren said. "Where what happened?" "The first lie." Lysander blinked. "The first, what?" "The first time I tricked it?" He stepped into the spiral and turned to face Lysander. His expression was neither proud nor ashamed, merely resigned. "I called it here," Jiren said. "With silver and a question, can cleverness outwit death?" "And I learned too late that the thing I spoke to wasn't death. It was older. Hungrier. It doesn't take life, it takes endings." Lysander frowned. "Endings?" Jiren nodded. "When you tell a story, the ending gives it meaning. Without an ending, it lingers. Unsettled. Dangerous. This thing, it devours unfinished stories. It turned me into one." Lysander felt the truth settle in his chest like a lead weight. "You became a wandering tale," he whispered. "Never ending. Never resolved." "Yes," Jiren said. "But you might be the final page." Suddenly, the flames above the bone well surged. A deep vibration shook the ground. The lantern in Lysander's hand grew hot. "Something's coming," he said. Jiren's eyes widened. "It knows we're here." From the darkness beyond the spiral, shapes began to emerge, tall, thin figures stitched together from pages, scripts, and scrolls. Their eyes were ink blots. Their mouths were quills. They moved without sound, and yet their presence screamed. "They are the forgotten," Jiren hissed. "Tales that were discarded. Left to rot. What do they want?" "You." Lysander backed away as the figures advanced. The green flame flickered wildly. "I'm not ready for this." "No one ever is." Then Gentlerain did something unexpected. He threw his own lantern into the well. The light exploded, and for a moment, everything stopped. Time paused. The figures froze. Gentlerain staggered. His face was cracked now, literal cracks running along his cheeks like old porcelain. "I gave you my story," he said, barely standing. "Now finish yours." The light in Lysander's lantern turned white hot. He screamed. The hollow answered. And then everything shattered. Silence. But not the kind that soothes. This silence was dense, like velvet soaked in sorrow pressing into Lysander's skin, his lungs, his bones. He wasn't sure how long he had floated in it. Seconds. Centuries. Then came the first sound. A heartbeat. Not his. It echoed in the emptiness around him, slow, deliberate, too loud. Each thud shook the darkness, like a god knocking from behind a door. A greenish glow pulsed with the rhythm, flickering into vision. Lysander opened his eyes. He was lying in what looked like a library, but no library he had ever seen. Shelves stretched up into infinity, curving like ribs. The books were alive. Their pages shifted without wind, whispering to each other in languages he didn't know. Some glowed softly, others wept ink. None had titles. He stood up, dizzy. His lantern was gone. Or perhaps not. Before him floated a book, bound in cracked leather. Its spine twisted as he approached, revealing a green flame dancing along the edge. He reached for it. "Careful," said a voice. "Not all stories want to be held." Lysander spun around. A girl stood behind him, barefoot, cloaked in dust and shadow, her hair woven with thorns. She couldn't have been older than 12, but her eyes were timeless. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm the archivist," she replied. "I keep what's left of the storytellers." Lysander blinked. There were others. "Dozens," she said. "Some braver than you. Some crueler. All lost." She walked past him, trailing her fingers along the spines of a dozen moaning volumes. "You're in the interstice now. The place between what's written and what's forgotten." He followed her. The deeper they walked, the louder the voices became, memories etched into every volume. He heard one man beg for a second chance. A child asked if their tale was worth telling. A woman laughed as she burned her own pages. "They're stuck?" he asked. "No," said the archivist. "They're waiting." "For what?" "For a rewrite." They stopped in front of a book wrapped in chains of silver light. It pulsed at Lysander's touch. "This one's yours," she said. Or rather, it was. The cover peeled back on its own, revealing a story that had not yet ended. His name was inked across it but fading. "Something's changing," he said. "Yes," she whispered. "You're being replaced." He recoiled. "What does that mean?" She looked up at him with pity. "You're not the first Lysander Quill. You won't be the last. Every time someone takes the lantern, the Hollow rewrites the world to fit them in and pushes the others out." Lysander's chest tightened. "I don't want to forget who I am." "Then find the pen," she said. He blinked. "What?" "The flame is only half the tool. The coin was the trick. But the pen, that's what started all this. It was meant to write endings." She turned, pointing deeper into the interstice. "Go through the mirror aisle. At the end, if you survive what you see, you'll find the last ink. Only then can you write your own escape." Lysander hesitated. "What if I fail?" The archivist shrugged. "Then you'll become a book like the rest." The path ahead twisted into darkness. Mirrors lined both sides, tall, ornate, ancient. And as he stepped between them, they began to flicker with images. His childhood. The night his father left. The first time he lied. The first story he ever wrote. The friends he'd abandoned. The mentors he'd disappointed. The betrayals he never faced. Each mirror showed not just memory but emotion. Shame. Pride. Envy. Regret. One mirror cracked as he passed. Another whispered his name with hatred. "Keep walking," said a voice not the archivist's, but his own, spoken from the mirror. He did. At the end of the aisle stood a pedestal. Upon it, a single quill. Blacker than shadow. Pulsing with life. It bled ink that moved on its own, curling like smoke into the air. Lysander reached for it. But before he could touch it, something stepped from the last mirror. It was him. Or rather a version of him twisted by fear and ambition. This version wore a cloak of pages and had eyes sewn shut with words. Its voice was ink, thick and heavy. "I am the storyteller who lied," it hissed. Lysander stepped back. "You're not real." "I'm more real than you," it growled. "I am what you become if you write only to escape." The two circled each other. "I seek truth," Lysander said. "You seek endings because you fear them," the echo sneered. "But every tale must die for meaning to live." Then it attacked. The battle wasn't physical but narrative. The echo spoke false versions of his life, trying to overwrite his memories. Each lie warped the world around them, turning the interstice into storm and ruin. Lysander fought back with truth. He shouted the names of those he'd wronged and forgiven. He recalled each story he'd cherished, each tale that taught him mercy, courage, love. The echoes trembled. "I am not your failure," Lysander screamed. "I am your rewrite." And with that, he lunged and seized the pen. A blinding light erupted from the pedestal. The mirror self shrieked and shattered. The interstice fell silent. And Lysander stood alone, ink on his fingers, flame in his chest, and his story once again in his hands. But the hollow was not done. Not yet. The air was thick with anticipation. Beyond the interstice, past the shifting shelves and whispering tomes, Lysander stepped through a narrow archway carved from the bones of forgotten myths. The world folded behind him, and he found himself standing in a vast hall unlike any he had seen, a cathedral of endings. High vaulted ceilings arched endlessly above, draped in dark velvet embroidered with silver constellations that pulsed like beating hearts. The floor beneath his feet was made of parchment, each step releasing a faint crackle as ancient words scrolled beneath him, some fading, some glowing with fresh ink. At the far end of the hall stood a single figure, tall, robed in white, face hidden behind a mask of blank pages. Lysander's heart raced. The figure spoke, voice echoing with the finality of a closing book. "I am the end." Lysander swallowed hard. "You decide who remains, and who ceases." "Yes," the end said. "Every story must conclude. Every soul must find rest. But few understand what it means to meet me willingly." Lysander took a step forward. "I want to write my own ending." The end tilted its head. "Many claim that. Few accept the price." "Then tell me," Lysander challenged. "What is the price?" The end extended a hand, pale and shimmering with ink. "To close a story is to release it. To sever all ties, hope, pain, memory, love. To embrace oblivion or salvation. There is no undoing once the final word is spoken." Lysander's gaze faltered. "Then why do you hold the pen that can end the hollow?" "Because it must be wielded with wisdom," the end replied. "And because I offer a choice." The hall shifted. Around them appeared thousands of glowing books, each representing a soul trapped in the hollow, the unfinished, the lost, the forgotten. You may end your own tale and be free. Or write a new chapter for another soul, giving them release. Lysander's thoughts raced. He remembered Geraint's curse, the archivist's warnings, the echo of himself in the mirror aisle. "I don't want to escape alone," he said finally. "I want to help." The end nodded. "Then choose wisely." From the depths of the hall, a spectral hand extended, holding a quill dipped in starlight. Lysander reached out, feeling the weight of countless stories pressing upon him. His mind filled with faces, friends lost, villains redeemed, legends half told. He dipped the quill into the ink. The moment it touched parchment, a rush of wind swept the hall. Words spilled forth, glowing with power, weaving endings for those trapped. One by one, lanterns around the hall brightened, souls freed from the hollow's grasp. But as the final word was written, Lysander's own story began to fade at the edges. He felt the pull. "Are you afraid?" The end asked softly. "Not anymore," Lysander whispered. With one last breath, he wrote his name, then closed the book. Light exploded, and the hollow sighed. The light that had swallowed the hollow faded slowly, revealing a world transformed. Lysander awoke not in a place of rest, but on the edge of a sprawling twilight realm, a borderland caught between what was and what could be. The sky stretched out like an endless canvas of shifting colors, painted with streaks of violet, gold, and deep indigo. The air hummed softly with the echoes of stories not yet told. For a moment, he thought he was free. But freedom was a shadow here. His hands, once ink-stained with the power to close stories, now felt strangely empty. The quill was gone, vanished in the light. The weight of his choice still lingered in his chest, but the world had moved on without him. Lysander stood and looked around. He was in the threshold, the realm beyond endings, a place where stories began anew or waited to be born. "Welcome," a voice called out, soft yet resonant. From the swirling mist stepped a figure, a woman, tall and graceful, clad in robes that shimmered like woven stars. Her eyes were deep pools of midnight, holding both sorrow and wisdom. "I am Seraphine, keeper of the threshold," she said, inclining her head. "Few who pass the end come here, fewer still who remain." Lysander nodded slowly. "What happens now?" Seraphine smiled faintly. "Now, you become a weaver." "A weaver?" She gestured around. "This realm is a loom, and you are a thread. The stories you freed have scattered their threads here, waiting to be woven into new tales." "Am I free to leave?" Lysander asked. "Not yet." She stepped closer, voice lowering. "The power to end stories is a heavy gift. It does not grant escape, it binds you to creation. To weave, you must understand the threads. To understand, you must face the unwritten." Lysander's heart quickened. The unwritten. The place where all possibilities dwell, the source of every story ever told or imagined. But also the place where chaos reigns. Here, narratives are fragile, and truth is fluid. A swirling vortex appeared nearby, shifting like liquid glass. This is the gateway to the unwritten. To become a true weaver, you must enter and claim a story to remake. Lysander hesitated, then stepped forward. Inside the vortex, shapes and scenes flashed past him, visions of heroes, villains, lost loves, and forgotten dreams. Time fractured, moments looping and shattering. He reached out and touched one thread, a flickering glimpse of a girl trapped in a mirror, calling for help. The vision solidified. Her name was Illyra, a storyteller lost in her own tale, trapped by a curse that twisted her narrative into endless repetition. Lysander understood. To free her, to weave her story anew, he would have to dive into the chaos of the unwritten and face dangers unknown. He took a deep breath and stepped fully into the vortex. The threshold faded behind him. Ahead lay the first true test of a weaver, the journey to restore stories and, perhaps, to find his own place in the vast tapestry. The moment Lysander crossed the threshold into the unwritten, the world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of shifting patterns, colors and shapes interweaving in a cosmic dance beyond comprehension. Reality here was fluid, malleable, stories hung in the air like unfinished melodies, waiting for a voice to claim them. His senses spun, yet he steadied himself, clutching the faint memory of Illyra's trapped reflection as a guiding thread. Ahead, the landscape formed into something familiar yet distorted, a sprawling labyrinth of mirrors and shadows. Each reflective surface shimmered with scenes half remembered or never completed, a night frozen mid-swing, a whispered farewell fading into silence, a child's laughter lost in the fog. Illyra's voice echoed softly, fragile and pleading. "Help me." Lysander's footsteps were careful as he navigated this maze of fractured tales. The air smelled of ink and old parchment, tinged with something darker: fear, desperation. Suddenly, a mirror cracked nearby, revealing a swirling vortex of black ink that spilled into the floor like a living shadow. From it emerged figures, faceless and formless manifestations of forgotten endings and broken promises. They reached for him with tendrils of despair, whispering lies and regrets. But Lysander raised his hands, focusing on the green flame that had guided him so far. The light flared, burning away the shadows and purifying the path. He moved forward, deeper into the heart of the labyrinth. Finally, he came to a vast chamber where a single mirror stood tall and unbroken. Inside was Illyra, her image flickering like a faulty reflection, caught in a loop of despair. "Lysander," she whispered, tears shimmering like glass. "I've been waiting." He stepped closer. "Tell me what trapped you." Illyra's story spilled forth, a tale of a young storyteller cursed by envy and betrayal, doomed to relive her greatest failure over and over. Her narrative had been twisted by a rival who sought to erase her voice from history. Lysander's heart ached. "We will rewrite your story," he promised. But to do so, he would have to face the rival's shadow, an entity born from jealousy and darkness, lurking just beyond the edges of the chamber. The battle for Illyra's tale was about to begin. The chamber darkened as the air thickened with malice. From the edges of the shattered mirrors emerged a figure, shapeless at first, then coalescing into a tall, imposing form cloaked in swirling shadows. Its eyes glowed with bitter flame, and its voice slithered through the air like venom. "I am the warden of lost stories," it hissed. "The one who ensures that some tales remain forgotten." Lysander stepped protectively in front of Illyra, feeling the weight of his responsibility surge. "You will not have her," he declared, holding his lantern high. The green flame burned fierce and steady, pushing back the creeping darkness. The warden laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Foolish weaver. Your light may brighten a moment, but the darkness endures." Without warning, the warden lunged, tendrils of shadow snapping toward Lysander's lantern. The flame flickered violently, struggling against the suffocating blackness. Lysander clenched his fists, drawing deep on the lessons learned in the hollow and the threshold. "You forget," he said, voice steady, "that stories are more than endings. They are hope, pain, love, courage, the very essence of life." He extended his hand, and from his palm blossomed a web of shimmering threads spun from memories, dreams, and unspoken truths. The threads wrapped around the warden, binding and illuminating. The warden screamed, thrashing against the bindings, but the light was relentless. Meanwhile, Illyra's image in the mirror grew clearer, her eyes brightening as the curse began to break. Lysander took a bold step forward. "Tell me your true story," he urged her. "Together, we can rewrite your fate." Illyra's voice strengthened as she spoke of betrayal not by a rival, but by her own doubt and fear. How she had abandoned her tale out of despair, letting the shadow take root. "But you gave me a second chance," she said, eyes shining. "Because you believed." The warden's form began to crumble, unable to withstand the light and truth woven by Lysander and Illyra. With a final, desperate shriek, it dissolved into a mist of forgotten words. The chamber brightened, the mirrors reflecting new scenes of hope, renewal, and stories yet to be told. Lysander smiled, feeling the weight of victory, but knew the journey was far from over. Together, they stepped through a newly formed portal, the next chapter of their quest calling them onward. As Lysander and Illyra stepped through the shimmering portal, the world around them dissolved into a swirling miasma of faded colors and half-formed shapes. They found themselves in a vast expanse known as the Forgotten, a place where lost stories, abandoned memories, and shattered dreams drifted endlessly, waiting for a chance to be remembered again or to fade away forever. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by faint whispers that seemed to echo from nowhere and everywhere at once. The ground beneath their feet felt soft and uneven, like walking on clouds woven from threads of forgotten tales. Illyra looked around cautiously. "This place, it's like a graveyard for stories," she whispered. "So many lives and dreams lost here." Lysander nodded, his lantern's green flame flickering faintly, barely piercing the thick gloom. "And yet, there's still hope," he said firmly. "Every story here holds the potential to be reborn." Their journey took them deeper into the Forgotten, where they encountered remnants of old legends, heroes who had forgotten their purpose, lovers whose promises were never fulfilled, and villains whose motives were lost in time. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the air, carrying with it a faint melody, a lullaby sung in a voice both beautiful and haunting. Drawn by the song, Lysander and Illyra followed it to a clearing where a solitary figure sat on a broken throne made of shattered books and faded scrolls. The figure was cloaked in shadows, with eyes that shimmered like stars hidden behind a veil of night. "Who are you?" Lysander asked cautiously. The figure smiled sadly. "I am Morwenna, the keeper of lost voices. I watch over those who have been forgotten, guarding the echoes of stories that might never be told again." Illyra stepped forward, her voice gentle. "We seek to restore the tales trapped here, to give them life once more." Morwenna's smile deepened. "A noble quest, but fraught with peril. The forgotten is not a place for the faint of heart. Many who come here become lost themselves, consumed by regrets and shadows." Lysander felt a pang of uncertainty but stood firm. "We are ready to face whatever challenges await." Morwenna nodded. "Then you must pass the trial of echoes, a test of memory, courage, and truth. Only by confronting your own forgotten fears can you unlock the power to revive these stories." The clearing faded away, replaced by a labyrinth of mirrors, each reflecting fragments of Lysander's and Illyra's past painful moments, mistakes, and lost hopes. Together, they ventured into the maze, confronting their deepest fears and insecurities. Shadows of doubt whispered lies, trying to ensnare them in endless loops of despair. But with each step, they drew strength from their shared determination, weaving threads of trust and courage to banish the darkness. At the heart of the labyrinth, they found a radiant wellspring of light, the source of echoes. By touching its surface, they awakened the dormant stories around them, watching as forgotten characters and tales blossomed into vibrant life once more. Exhausted but triumphant, Lysander and Illyra prepared to continue their journey, knowing that the path ahead would only grow more challenging. The light from the source of echoes shimmered gently, casting prismatic colors that danced like fireflies across the forgotten realm. Lysander and Illyra stood side by side, their breath steadying after the harrowing trial of echoes. Around them, the once dormant stories stirred, awakening from their slumber, eager to be told again. But even amidst this renewal, a solemn weight hung heavy in the air, a reminder that the path ahead was fraught with greater perils yet unseen. "We have succeeded in restoring the voices," Illyra murmured, her eyes scanning the horizon where the mists began to thin. "But the unwritten still calls." Lysander nodded, gripping his lantern tighter. "Our journey is far from over." Suddenly, from the swirling mists emerged figures cloaked in shimmering robes, their faces obscured beneath hoods embroidered with symbols of ink and quill. They moved with an ethereal grace, their presence commanding yet serene. One stepped forward, a tall figure whose voice resonated like the turning of ancient pages. "Welcome, Lysander, Quill and Illyra of the Mirror," the figure intoned. "We are the weavers, the guardians of the narrative threads that bind all realms. You have shown courage and wisdom beyond your years. Yet, the true test lies ahead." Illyra exchanged a glance with Lysander. "What must we do?" The weaver spoke, "You have glimpsed the power of stories reborn, but to wield such power responsibly, you must understand the covenant, the sacred pact that governs the weaver's duty to balance. Creation and conclusion. From the folds of the weaver's robe, a scroll unfurled, glowing with a soft light. The ancient script within seemed to pulse with life, the words weaving themselves into intricate patterns that spoke of harmony, sacrifice, and the eternal dance between light and shadow. The covenant, the weaver explained, binds us to maintain equilibrium. To give voice to the forgotten is to invite the risk of chaos. Every story revived shifts the balance. You must learn to discern which tales to nurture and which to let fade into silence. Lysander's gaze hardened. How do we make such choices? Through the loom of fate, another weaver replied, extending a hand toward a vast construct that resembled a spider's web spun from silver threads stretching into infinity. Here lies the fabric of all stories, the tapestry upon which reality is woven. As Lysander and Illyra approached, they saw threads glowing with varying intensities, some bright and vibrant, others dim and fraying. You will weave your paths carefully, the weaver cautioned. Entangle wisely, for a single misstep may unravel destinies. Illyra reached out, her fingers brushing a golden thread. Images flooded her mind, people she had never met, worlds she had never known, stories yearning to be told. It is overwhelming, she whispered. Indeed, Lysander agreed, tracing a delicate blue thread that pulsed softly. But also humbling. The weavers began to chant in unison, their voices weaving a melody that resonated deep within the souls of Lysander and Illyra. Through trials and triumphs, through sorrow and joy, balance must hold as stories deploy. Weave with intent, with heart, and with care. For fate's fragile web is delicate and rare. Suddenly, the loom vibrated violently. Threads snapped and tangled, sending ripples across the tapestry. Dark tendrils of shadow crept along the edges, threatening to consume entire sections. The weavers' faces grew grave. The shadow binders, the lead weaver said. They seek to corrupt and consume, to twist stories into nightmares. Their influence spreads, fueled by forgotten pain and bitterness. Lysander's grip tightened. Then we must fight, not just to restore stories, but to protect the very fabric of existence. Illyra nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Together, the weavers bestowed upon them enchanted threads, gifts woven with ancient magic, enabling them to mend frayed narratives and repel corruption. As Lysander and Illyra took hold of their threads, a surge of power coursed through them, intertwining their destinies irrevocably. With newfound resolve, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face the shadow binders and safeguard the stories that shaped all worlds. The loom of fate trembled beneath their feet as Lysander and Illyra stood poised, enchanted threads glowing fiercely in their grasp. The air thickened with tension, shadows coiling like serpents at the edges of the tapestry. The shadow binders had arrived. From the mists emerged twisted figures, gaunt and unnatural, their forms woven from fraying threads and shattered memories. Their eyes were voids of despair, mouths dripping with forgotten regrets. They moved with lethal grace, a swirling storm of corruption hungry to unravel every story. Leading them was a figure cloaked in tattered parchment, face obscured by an ancient mask inscribed with runes of erasure, their leader, the Weaver of Oblivion. "Your defiance ends here," the Weaver hissed, voice echoing like the rustle of falling pages. "The hollow will consume all, and your tales will fade into nothingness." Lysander tightened his grip, raising his lantern. The green flame blazed like a beacon, illuminating the darkness. "Not while we still hold the pen." Illyra stepped forward, threads weaving intricate patterns in the air, summoning shields of light and tendrils of hope. "We fight for every story worth telling, for every soul yearning to be remembered." The battle erupted in a whirlwind of light and shadow. Threads tangled and snapped, reality bending and twisting as power clashed. Lysander danced through the chaos, stitching broken narratives together, mending the fractures caused by the Shadowbinder's assault. Illyra's voice rang out, a rallying cry that infused strength into their allies. She weaved stories of courage and resilience, turning fear into defiance. The Weaver of Oblivion struck with devastating force, unraveling Lysander's threads and plunging him into a void of silence and forgetting. But with fierce will, Lysander grasped the ember of his soul, reigniting his flame and breaking free. Side by side, Lysander and Illyra confronted the Weaver in a final crescendo of magic and resolve. Their threads entwined, forming a web of unbreakable light that trapped the Weaver and began to restore the shattered loom. With a deafening roar, the Weaver dissolved into a cascade of lost words, banished from the tapestry forever. Breathless but victorious, Lysander and Illyra surveyed the repaired loom, a radiant tapestry humming with renewed life. But in the distance, a whisper echoed. "The story is never truly over." The loom of fate hummed with renewed energy, its silver threads weaving intricate patterns of light and shadow. Lysander and Illyra stood amidst the vast tapestry, catching their breath after the brutal clash with the Weaver of Oblivion and his Shadowbinders. Yet, beneath the surface of their triumph, a restless whisper stirred the echo of a promise made long ago, waiting to be fulfilled. Illyra traced her fingers over a shimmering thread, the fabric beneath it pulsing softly. "The tapestry is healing," she murmured, "but the balance is delicate. We've only delayed the inevitable." Lysander nodded thoughtfully. "The Weaver's covenant spoke of equilibrium. Our battle restored part of it, but it also revealed how fragile that balance truly is." As they spoke, the loom shimmered and shifted, revealing a hidden pattern, a secret woven deep into the fabric. It was a thread unlike any other, dark, yet glowing faintly with a pulsating crimson light. It stretched from the farthest edge of the tapestry, twisting and coiling like a serpent ready to strike. "We need to follow this thread," Lysander said, eyes narrowing. "It feels dangerous." Illyra agreed. "It's unlike the others. It carries a weight of sorrow and power." Guided by the glowing crimson thread, they journeyed through the loom, passing countless stories, some vibrant with hope, others tarnished by despair. The tapestry felt alive beneath their feet, humming softly as they moved. After what felt like hours, they arrived at a colossal chamber, the heart of the loom. Here, the crimson thread culminated in a vast, pulsating orb, the heart of the covenant. Guarding it stood a figure draped in robes of woven shadows and light, an ancient weaver known as Callan, the keeper of the covenant's secrets. Callan's eyes, pools of shifting ink, studied Lysander and Illyra. "You have done well to reach this place," he said, voice deep and resonant. "But the path you walk is fraught with peril." Lysander stepped forward. "We seek to understand the true nature of the covenant and how to preserve the balance." Callan nodded solemnly. "The covenant was forged eons ago, binding creation and conclusion in an eternal dance. It is the essence of stories themselves, their beginnings, middles, and ends woven into a single fabric. To disturb it is to risk unraveling reality." Illyra looked at the pulsating orb. "Is the crimson thread a fracture in the covenant?" "It is more," Callan replied. "A wound. A legacy of betrayal." Callan began to unravel the history. Long ago, before the weavers formed their covenant, there existed a weaver named Arinder, a master storyteller whose ambition knew no bounds. Seeking to control all narratives, he attempted to rewrite the loom for his own ends, disregarding the delicate balance. Arinder's actions fractured the covenant, creating a scar that bled corruption and chaos, the crimson thread. To seal this wound, the weavers bound Arinder within the heart of the covenant, imprisoning him in a tale that must never be told. But, Callan warned, the scar is weakening. Arinder's influence seeps through, manifesting as the shadow binders and other dark forces. Lysander's jaw clenched. "Then we must strengthen the covenant." Callan extended a hand, revealing an ancient quill forged from starfire. "This is the weaver's pen, the instrument to mend the loom. But wielding it demands sacrifice." "What kind of sacrifice?" Illyra asked, wary. "To right balance is to give parts of yourself to the tapestry," Callan explained. "Your memories, your desires, even your very essence may become threads within the story." Lysander glanced at Illyra, determination blazing in his eyes. "We are ready." Callan nodded. "Then prepare yourselves. The loom will test your resolve." As Lysander and Illyra took hold of the weaver's pen, the chamber began to shift, the tapestry unraveling and rewebbing around them. Visions flooded their minds, memories of their past, fears for the future, and the weight of countless stories intertwined with their own. They were no longer mere observers but active participants in the fabric of existence. Their journey had become a true weaving, one of creation, destruction, and ultimate redemption. The weaver's pen pulsed with incandescent light in Lysander's hand, its starfire glow casting intricate patterns upon the loom's endless tapestry. Illyra stood beside him, eyes wide with awe and determination as the chamber around them rippled, alive with the power of creation itself. A voice echoed a chorus of all weavers past and present singing the sacred song of the loom. Threads entwined, destinies bind. Light and shadow, heart and mind. Through sacrifice, power flows. The weaver's path only the brave knows. Lysander felt a surge ripple through his very core, a force both exhilarating and terrifying. The weaver's pen was no mere tool, it was a fragment of the cosmos, embodying the creative and destructive forces that shaped every story ever told. He hesitated before dipping the pen into the glowing orb, the heart of the covenant. Instantly, visions cascaded through his mind, entire worlds born, civilizations rising and falling, heroes battling monsters, love forged and lost. The loom was the nexus of all existence, a fragile web of infinite possibility. But with great power came immense responsibility. Illyra stepped forward, her voice steady yet filled with reverence. We must weave carefully. Every stroke, every word, every choice echoes through the tapestry. Together, they began to write. With the weaver's pen, Lysander wove threads of light to mend the scar left by Arinder's betrayal. Illyra infused strands of hope and courage, stabilizing the unraveling edges of the loom. The chamber responded, the crimson thread faded, replaced by shimmering gold that pulsed with renewed life. Yet, the process demanded more than skill, it demanded sacrifice. Fragments of Lysander's memories began to fade, the laughter of his childhood, the face of a long-lost friend, moments of joy and sorrow blending into the tapestry's weave. Illyra felt her own fears dissolve, replaced by unwavering resolve and a deepening connection to the loom. Callan watched solemnly. The weaver's pen does not merely shape stories, it reshapes the weaver. Each act of creation is a relinquishment, a binding to the eternal flow. Suddenly, a tremor shook the chamber. From the shadows emerged a figure, one that defied description, a being forged from twisted threads of past, present, and future, embodying Arinder's lingering will. I am the shadow of ambition, it declared, voice a tempest of wrath and regret. Your weaving cannot undo what I began. Lysander tightened his grip on the pen. We will not let your darkness consume the loom. The ensuing battle transcended physicality, becoming a clash of narrative wills. Light and shadow intertwined in a tempest of creation and destruction. Lysander and Illyra wove intricate patterns of truth and resolve, pushing back the shadow's corrosive influence. As the battle raged, Lysander glimpsed a hidden truth: Arinder had not been a villain, but a weaver broken by loss and desperation, seeking to save what he loved at any cost. Moved by this revelation, Lysander reached out not with force, but with understanding. He wove a new thread, one of forgiveness and redemption, binding Arinder's fractured essence back into the loom's harmony. The shadow faltered, then dissolved into radiant light. Peace settled over the chamber. Callan stepped forward, a rare smile touching his lips. You have surpassed the trials of the covenant. You are true weavers now, guardians of balance and creators of destiny. Lysander and Illyra exchanged a glance, their journey far from over, but their purpose clearer than ever. Together, they would protect the loom and guide the endless stories yet to be told. The chamber where Lysander and Illyra had just triumphed over the shadow of ambition faded into a tapestry of mist and stars. Though the loom had been mended, a new tension threaded through the air like a secret waiting to unravel. As they stepped from the sanctuary, The weavers greeted them with solemn eyes. Kalen's voice, heavy with unspoken weight, broke the silence. Your victory has saved the loom for now, but the balance remains fragile. There are forces beyond even Arinder's ambition, forces that dwell in the spaces between stories, in the shadows beyond the weave. Illyra frowned, her hand instinctively reaching for the weaver's pen. What shadows? Before Kalen could answer, a low rumble vibrated beneath their feet. The loom rippled violently, threads twisting and snapping as an ominous figure emerged from the swirling tapestry. It was a weaver unlike any they had seen, cloaked in darkness so complete it seemed to swallow light, with eyes like black holes, endless and consuming. I am Nazar, the figure intoned, voice resonant with the void itself. The weaver of forgotten nightmares, the devourer of unwritten destinies. Lysander's heart clenched. Kalen stepped forward, raising a hand to halt the shadow. Nazar was cast out by the Covenant eons ago, condemned for attempting to unravel the very fabric of fate. Nazar's presence exuded cold fury. I seek what is denied to me, the power to rewrite endings, to control the stories that fate refuses to yield. Illyra tightened her grip on Lysander's arm. We will not let you consume the loom. Nazar laughed, a sound like dying stars. You cannot stop the inevitable. The shadow is as much a part of the weave as the light. Suddenly, the loom erupted into chaos. Threads twisted wildly, reality bending and fracturing. Lysander and Illyra were torn apart by the unraveling tapestry, hurled into separate realms, each facing their own nightmare made manifest. Lysander found himself in a realm of endless twilight, haunted by echoes of his deepest fears, failure, loss, the erasure of his very existence. Illyra was trapped in a labyrinth of shattered mirrors, each reflecting distorted versions of herself, some cruel, some broken, all trapped in endless loops. Separated, they fought battles not just against external shadows but the darkness within their own souls. In this fractured space, Lysander grappled with memories of those he'd failed, the faces of loved ones slipping away like smoke. Each step threatened to dissolve his identity. But from the depths of his despair, a spark ignited a thread of resilience woven from the bonds he'd forged with Illyra and the Weavers. Illyra confronted the twisted reflections of her fears, breaking the cycles of doubt and reclaiming her narrative with fierce determination. As they overcame their personal trials, the realms around them began to stabilize. Reunited by the power of their intertwined threads, Lysander and Illyra forged a path back to the loom, stronger and more united. But Nazar's shadow loomed still, a reminder that the battle for the balance of stories was far from over. The loom pulsed with a rhythm both ancient and alive, vibrating beneath the weight of unspoken promises and looming destinies. Lysander and Illyra stood at its center, the weaver's pen glowing fiercely in their hands. They had faced the darkest corners of their souls, but the true shadow now awaited, a force that threatened to consume not only stories but the essence of existence itself. Nazar materialized before them, a swirling tempest of void and despair, eyes like endless abysses that seemed to pull at the very fabric of their beings. You think you can hold back the night? Nazar's voice echoed, dripping with contempt. I am the inevitable. Where light fails, I thrive. The stories you cherish will crumble into silence. Lysander squared his shoulders, flame in his lantern roaring defiantly. We weave stories to bring light into darkness. You cannot extinguish what's already been kindled. Illyra stepped beside him, her threads weaving a radiant barrier that shimmered with hope and resilience. The loom belongs to all tales, she said firmly. Not just your nightmares. Nazar laughed, a sound like shattering stars. Then come, weavers. Let us see whose thread is stronger. The battlefield was no longer a physical place but a shifting void where threads of narrative twisted and tore. Nazar unleashed torrents of shadow, attempting to unravel Lysander and Illyra's bonds, seeking to sever their connection to the loom. But Lysander called upon the memories and stories they had gathered, the laughter of children, the courage of heroes, the sacrifices of forgotten souls, and wove them into a tapestry of defiance. Illyra's voice rang out, weaving healing threads that mended the fraying edges of their resolve. Together, they countered Nazar's assault, their light-weaving patterns of strength and unity. Yet, Nazar was relentless. Drawing upon the deepest fears and regrets within their hearts, the shadow manifested illusions that threatened to break their spirits. Lysander saw visions of failure, friends lost, stories erased. Illyra faced reflections of doubt and betrayal. But their bond held firm. With one final surge, Lysander and Illyra combined their powers, the weaver's pen glowing with blinding brilliance. They wrote a new thread, a story of redemption, balance, and the enduring power of hope. The thread wrapped around Nazar, binding the shadow in chains of light and truth. With a howl of rage and sorrow, Nazar was banished, dissolved into the loom's fabric, a reminder of the darkness that lurked but could be overcome. Exhausted but victorious, Lysander and Illyra stood amidst the restored tapestry. Callan and the other weavers approached, their faces alight with respect and hope. "You have done what few could," Callan said. "The loom is safe, but your journey is just beginning." Lysander looked to Illyra, determination blazing. "We will protect the stories, no matter the cost." Illyra smiled. Together. The loom's light pulsed steadily, weaving an eternal dance of stories and fates. Lysander and Illyra stood at its heart, the weight of their victory still settling deep within their souls. Though Nazar's shadow had been banished, the fabric of the narrative world was far from secure. New challenges awaited, threads that twisted with uncertainty and danger. Callan approached, his gaze grave yet resolute. "The balance is fragile, as ever. Darkness may retreat, but it never truly disappears. The loom calls for vigilant guardians, weavers who understand both creation and sacrifice." Illyra nodded. "We have accepted that responsibility." Lysander looked out across the vast tapestry, its endless threads shimmering with potential. "What lies ahead?" Callan gestured to a newly woven pattern, an intricate web of silver and violet, pulsating with energy. "This is the web of destiny. It connects not just stories within this realm, but across all realms realities intertwined through narrative threads. A soft hum filled the air as Kalen's voice lowered. There are phrases within the web points where fate is tangled, histories rewritten, and futures endangered. You too must journey beyond the loom to mend these fractures. Illyra's eyes shone with determination. We will go wherever the threads lead. Before they could depart, a flicker of movement caught Lysander's attention. From the shadows stepped a figure young, vibrant, with eyes reflecting the cosmos itself. "I am Elis," she said, bowing slightly. "A weaver from the realm beyond the known tapestry. I bring warnings and aid." She spoke of an ancient convergence, an event where the boundaries between worlds thin, threatening to unravel the very essence of stories and existence. "The convergence draws near," Elis warned. "Dark forces gather, seeking to exploit the weakening threads. Only by uniting weavers across realms can the loom be preserved." Lysander exchanged a glance with Illyra. "Then we must build alliances," he said. "Gather the weavers, protect the loom." Their journey led them beyond the loom's sanctuary, through gateways woven of light and shadow, into realms of wonder and peril. Along the way, they encountered fellow weavers, each with unique gifts and burdens, who joined their cause, weaving new patterns of strength and hope. Yet, the deeper they ventured, the more Lysander and Illyra felt the weight of their choices, the sacrifices made, and the uncertain path ahead. In the quiet moments between journeys, they shared stories of loss, courage, and dreams, reminding each other of the power held within their intertwined threads. As the convergence loomed, the weavers prepared to face a challenge unlike any before, a test of unity, resolve, and the very nature of storytelling itself. The loom of fate thrummed with urgency, its threads vibrating like a living heartbeat. Lysander, Illyra, and their newfound allies stood before the great nexus, a colossal chamber where the fabric of all realities intertwined. The air was thick with anticipation and unspoken fears. The convergence was upon them. From every corner of existence, weavers answered the call. Figures cloaked in mystery and power emerged, each bearing their own threads, their own stories etched into the vast tapestry. Among them were masters of forgotten magics, guardians of lost legends, and champions of untold futures. Kalen addressed the assembly, his voice steady despite the mounting tension. "We face a darkness unlike any before, the Voidborn. Born from the unraveling of fractured stories, they seek to devour the loom and extinguish all narratives." Murmurs rippled through the gathered weavers. The Voidborn were whispered of in legends, beings of pure entropy, unbound by story or fate, capable of erasing existence itself. Illyra stepped forward, her threads weaving patterns of light that shimmered against the shadowy veil creeping at the chamber's edges. "We stand united. Together, our threads are stronger than any force that threatens the loom." Lysander nodded, lantern blazing with fierce determination. "We will protect the stories, the memories, the futures. We will not let the Voidborn rewrite all to nothing." Suddenly, the loom pulsed violently, and the chamber darkened as the Voidborn manifested, shifting shapes of darkness and void, their forms constantly changing, devouring light and hope alike. The battle erupted in a tempest of threads, light against shadow, creation against destruction. Weavers called upon their powers, weaving shields, mending fractures, and unraveling tendrils of oblivion. Lysander and Illyra fought side by side, their threads intertwining, creating a beacon of hope that pierced the Voidborn's assault. The fight was brutal and relentless. Many weavers fell, their threads severed, their stories fading into silence. Yet the spirit of the loom endured, bolstered by the courage and sacrifice of its guardians. As the tide turned, Lysander summoned the full power of the weaver's pen, scripting a new thread of destiny that sealed the fractures and banished the Voidborn to the shadows between stories. Exhausted but victorious, the weavers gathered, their bond forged in the crucible of battle. Callan spoke solemnly. The loom is safe, for now. But the threads of fate are ever fragile. Our vigilance must never waver. Lysander looked to Illyra, hope shining despite the scars of war. This is only the beginning. Together, they vowed to continue weaving stories of light, balance, and resilience, guardians of the eternal tapestry. The aftermath of the battle against the Voidborn hung heavily over the loom. Though the great tapestry was mended, scars remained, fractures faint but persistent, whispering of dangers yet to come. Lysander and Illyra returned to the heart of the loom, the weaver's pen still warm with the echoes of their last act. Their bodies bore the marks of the struggle, but it was their minds that carried the deepest wounds, questions unanswered and burdens unshared. Callan awaited them, his gaze grave but understanding. You have faced darkness beyond reckoning, and yet, the loom endures. But such battles come at a price, not just to the fabric of stories, but to those who weave them. Illyra sighed, fingers brushing the glowing threads that surrounded them. Sometimes I wonder if we are more thread than weaver now, woven so tightly into the tapestry that we can no longer tell where the story ends and we begin. Lysander nodded in agreement. The weaver's pen changes us. Each sacrifice, each thread mended, becomes a part of us. But what happens when the story consumes the storyteller? Callan's voice was soft. That is the burden of the covenant. To preserve stories, one must be willing to lose pieces of oneself. But there is hope, always hope. As they spoke, a subtle shift rippled through the loom. From the weaving threads emerged a new pattern, a shimmering path of light that beckoned them forward. It is the path of renewal, Callan explained. A journey beyond the loom, to realms untouched by shadow or light. There, the true nature of the weavers is revealed, and the future of the tapestry is forged. Lysander and Illyra exchanged a glance, determined, yet cautious. Together, they stepped onto the path, leaving behind the familiar threads of the loom and venturing into the unknown. The path wound through realms of pure imagination, places where stories were born in bursts of color and sound, where possibilities bloomed like stars in a limitless sky. But amid the beauty, dangers lurked, fragments of forgotten fears and doubts, remnants of stories never told. As they journeyed, Lysander's thoughts drifted to the faces of those they had saved, the lives entwined with their own threads. Every story we mend, every thread we weave, it changes us, he mused aloud. Perhaps that is the true power of the weaver. Illyra smiled gently. And the true test? To hold on to who we are while becoming part of everything. Their journey along the path of renewal had only just begun, and with it came new challenges, new alliances, and the ever-present question, what is the story worth telling? The path of renewal stretched endlessly before Lysander and Illyra, a shimmering ribbon of light and shadow weaving through realms of pure creation. Around them, colors swirled like living dreams, and the air hummed with the song of countless unborn stories. Yet beneath the dazzling beauty lay a fragile truth: the very essence of possibility was both a gift and a curse. As they journeyed deeper, the landscape shifted, morphing into a vast expanse of veils, thin, translucent curtains fluttering like wings in an unseen breeze. Each veil shimmered with potential futures, fragments of stories waiting to be born or abandoned. Illyra reached out, touching one veil. Instantly, a vision unfolded: a world torn by war, where heroes rose and fell beneath stormy skies. Another veil revealed a quiet village bathed in golden light, where simple joys and whispered secrets shaped lives. Lysander watched in awe, feeling the weight of infinite choices pressing upon them. "This place," he murmured, "is where all stories begin. Every path, every possibility." But the veils also whispered warnings. From the shadows between folds, shapes stirred, figures cloaked in uncertainty and fear, manifestations of doubts that plague every storyteller. One approached, its form flickering like a candle flame struggling against the wind. "I am the doubt," it said softly. "I feed on hesitation, on fear of the unknown. Without me, no story can grow. But with me unchecked, all stories die before they begin." Lysander met its gaze. "Then how do we move forward?" The doubt smiled enigmatically. "By embracing uncertainty. By weaving courage into the unknown." Illyra stepped beside Lysander, threads of light entwining their hands. "We will face whatever comes," she declared. Together, they moved through the veils, each step a choice, each choice a new thread woven into their destiny. Along the way, they encountered echoes of themselves, versions of who they might have been had they chosen differently. Lysander saw a reflection of a man who had abandoned his quest, swallowed by fear and regret. Illyra glimpsed a self who had embraced darkness, lost to bitterness and despair. They shuddered, but pressed onward, weaving strength from understanding. As they neared the heart of the path, a radiant figure awaited, a weaver older than time, known only as the primordial scribe. "I am the keeper of origins," the figure intoned. "Guardian of the first stories and the endless potential within." The primordial scribe revealed a tome unlike any other, a living book that shimmered with the light of creation itself. "To master the path of renewal," the scribe said, "you must write your own origins anew, forging a beginning that honors the past but embraces the future." Lysander and Illyra took the pen offered, feeling the immense power and responsibility it carried. With steady hands, they began to write not just their story, but the story of all weavers, all tales, all possibilities. Light blossomed around them, the veils dissolving into radiant threads of destiny. Their journey on the path of renewal had transformed from a quest into a creation, a new chapter in the eternal tapestry of stories. The radiant threads woven by Lysander and Illyra shimmered throughout the cosmos, cascading like waterfalls of light into every corner of existence. The path of renewal had transformed them not just as weavers, but as architects of fate itself. Standing before the primordial scribe, the ancient keeper of origins, Lysander felt the immense weight of responsibility settle like a mantle across his shoulders. "You have written beginnings anew," the scribe intoned, "yet every end beckons a new beginning. The tapestry is endless, and so too is your journey." Illyra nodded, eyes reflecting the infinite stars embedded in the loom. "We are bound to this cycle to protect, to create, and to embrace the unknown." Suddenly, the loom pulsed violently. From its depths emerged shimmering visions, heroes, villains, lost souls, and unborn tales, all converging in a dance of destiny. Callan and the weavers gathered around, faces illuminated by hope and determination. "The balance is restored," Callan declared, "but vigilance is eternal. The loom thrives because stories never truly end, they evolve, intertwine, and endure." Lysander glanced at Illyra, a smile breaking through the exhaustion and uncertainty. "Our story is but a thread in this vast tapestry. Together, we weave the future." As they clasped hands, the weaver's pen glowed brightly, an emblem of unity and endless possibility. Beyond the loom, new realms awaited exploration, new stories longed to be told, and new challenges stirred in the shadows. But Lysander and Illyra were ready. For they were more than weavers, they were the eternal light in the endless weave. Tuda, title: The Eternal Weave, the Chronicles of the Weaver's Covenant. Amota, description: Step into a realm where stories are more than mere words, they are the threads that bind reality itself. Follow Lysander, Quill and Illyra, two brave weavers entrusted with the sacred duty to protect the loom of fate, a cosmic tapestry weaving every tale, every destiny, across infinite realms. From the haunting shadows of forgotten legends to the radiant paths of renewal, their journey unveils ancient secrets, fierce battles against dark forces like the Voidborn and Nazar, and the delicate balance between creation and conclusion. Bound by the Weaver's Covenant, they must navigate the treacherous weave of light and shadow, confront their deepest fears, and unite lost storytellers from distant realities. Each chapter reveals a new challenge, a new revelation, and a deeper understanding of what it means to weave the fabric of existence. The Eternal Weave is an epic tale of courage, sacrifice, and hope, a mythic saga where the power of stories can save worlds or doom them to oblivion. Will Lysander and Illyra succeed in safeguarding the infinite tapestry of life, or will darkness unravel everything? Embark on this mesmerizing journey through the infinite realms of imagination, where every thread counts and every story matters.